NBC's Sam Brock, who's standing by for us at LaGuardia Airport as well. Sam, we learned a lot from this press conference today. I couldn't say the same about yesterday's press conference, but today we did get a lot. We got everything from the timing, from when this plane actually touched down to when that recorder gave out. We got, when in fact that stop came in. We also learned that there were two individuals who were in the tower, two air traffic controllers, and then that the ASDX system did not actually alert that there was a possibility of a collision because that fire truck did not have a transponder in the vehicle. What stood out to you, Sam, and what are some of the outstanding questions that you still have as you've been covering this story for the last 2 days since the crash?
Yasmin, you know what stood out to me the most was sort of the reflected ambivalence from Jennifer Homendy when she was talking about the chair of the NTSB, obviously, when she was talking about what is the standard operating procedure for the field of aviation, be it LaGuardia or other airports, that you generally have two people on their shift in the tower cab overnight. She sort of made it seem like this is essentially how things function. There's less volume. Obviously, you have collaboration between those two individuals, but you don't need more people. But we might have to reassess that if you were sort of reading between the lines of her remarks. And I say this in context, having just spoken with a former controller for the FAA for 22 years in cities with lots of volume like Denver and Phoenix. And he told me 2 is a very, very tight margin for error, because of the fact that you have these late night hours. You have people that need to take coffee breaks and bathroom breaks, and so they need to be relieved at various points. When that happens, especially as we're getting late into the morning, you have one person potentially that's managing all of these responsibilities at the same time. Like 2 should not be the default. That was his position. We also don't know where exactly those 2 individuals are. Were they both in the cab? Were they in a different part of the tower? We did get more clarity from Homendy earlier that there were in fact 2, but he was telling me that that's not good to begin with. And then also something that he pointed out, we didn't get this detail from the press conference, but in the audio from the ATC, where you hear them say, one of the controllers, it's not clear who, Frontier, stop, 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 and he lists the flight number. He then says to the fire truck, stop, 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 but there's no noun that precedes it, indicating, hey, listen to me, fire truck, you need to stop, you specifically. I would have loved to have heard that addressed if there was a breach of protocol in that sense, because you have all these vehicles, and this is something that we just learned, according to Ms. Homendy, that there were tons of fire and police vehicles nearby on the runway, and they may not have been obviously understanding who was being told not to go or to go, and it all came just within a matter of seconds. I mean, you ran through that TikTok, right? At 20 seconds, that's when the clearance from the truck came in. 9 seconds, the tower instructs the truck to stop. 6 seconds. 3 seconds later, the pilots transfer controls, and then at 4 seconds, again, the truck is told to stop. So this is all happening in a matter of seconds, and then the collision. I mean, it's just clearly something that was avoidable, and I know Homendy discussed this chain reaction where it's not just one thing, it's a series of issues. But if there's one takeaway for me, it was her stating that they may need to re-examine the standard operating procedure at LaGuardia and other airports around the country over whether there should just be 2 controllers in the cab in these late night hours.
Well, yeah, and this is, to your point, Sam, this is not a regional airport. I'm sure a lot of the folks watching have flown through LaGuardia Airport. This is a huge airport, a lot of traffic that does not stop at 11 p.m. or midnight, right? Planes are coming in all hours of the night. So the fact that there's only 2 air traffic controllers in that tower, and they don't even necessarily know if there was someone on standby to pick up the slack, if in fact, as you mentioned, someone needed to use the restroom, for instance, is a little bit astounding, I think, to a lot of folks that are likely watching.
Yes, and there were weather conditions on Sunday night as well. I spoke with several passengers who said it was a very rough landing. Visibility was low. The FAA administrator spoke to that. So these were challenging conditions on top of the fact that it was late in the night, early morning, and it is one of the busiest or most critical airports in the country. You combine all of those factors together, and the fact that the default was still 2 people, and we don't even know necessarily how many others may have been there or not. Homendy discussed the fact that there was conflicting information from the logs as to the staffing. So we're still waiting for more details on that. But it's a confluence of factors, and at the end of the day, you're looking at still this stunning scene, right? Like over my shoulder, that is the aircraft. We were watching, Yasmin, earlier today as members of the NTSB team and perhaps FAA and other investigating agencies were walking through that wreckage and peering over and sort of looking underneath the plane. We don't know what clues specifically they were searching for, but this is all playing out in real time as flights are taking off at LaGuardia. I mean, you have this split screen where this major national investigation is going on, and LaGuardia operates typically 900 flights or so arriving and departing a day. That has been really reduced in the last couple of days. They had somewhere in the effect of 250 or 300 cancellations so far as of an hour ago. That's like 30+% of the total flights of the day. This has affected everybody, but the tragedy of it all is really what's so sobering and what stands out. It's right there in front of you as the rest of aviation here at this airport continues to carry on.
Yeah, we got about 60 seconds left, Sam, but that's exactly what I'm thinking of as you're speaking is, you know, that plane right behind you, over your right shoulder, the fact that folks are taking off. It seems that the chairwoman indicated they're still only at the beginning of this investigation. Are there any plans to reopen runway 4 in the next few days or so? And also kind of what passengers are having to deal with in taking off on their own flights and looking at that really horrific sight behind you.
Yeah, I don't have insight as to how people who are here right now, Yasmin, are absorbing emotionally and mentally the sight of seeing this plane as they're taking off down the runway. But I will add, runway 4 is expected to reopen, according to the FAA, on Friday. So presumably it would be business as usual within a couple of days. But we don't know that definitively. That's what the FAA said yesterday.
We did learn a lot today, that is for sure, but much more information is to come as we listen to that NTSB presser at LaGuardia Airport. Sam Brock, thank you for being there for us, as always.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.